Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a very special presentation. Going to wait for a few more people to register here. So while we're waiting, just like to welcome everybody again. My name is Brett Hawke. I am the Director of Swim Camps and Clinics at Fitter and Faster Tour. And while we're all at home these days, we're trying to find ways to connect and engage and improve while we're at home. And there's many things that we can do. And today's topic is very relatable to the things that you can be doing at home to make improvements in yourself as an athlete and as a person. Today, we're going to be talking about mental skills and things you can train right now. Okay, so we have David Arlock is the founder and CEO of Fitter and Faster. He's also the creator of this extraordinary webinar series, and I welcome David to the program now.
Hey, Brett, thank you for having me, and hi, everybody. My name is David Arlock. I'm a dad to two kids. My son, Alex, is 11 years old, and my daughter, Olivia, is 4. I've been married for 14 years. My wife is Jessica. And I'm also the founder of Fitter and Faster Swim Camps. And like a majority of families throughout the United States and around the world, our kids are out of school. We're learning how to homeschool. We miss swimming. We miss going out to dinner, seeing friends and family. We've had to cancel and postpone trips and other fun events. We're sometimes at a loss of what to do with our time. We're not earning an income and so much more. But I feel like this pandemic is giving us an opportunity to harness and sharpen mental and emotional skills that will get us through this and propel us into the future. And we found that many top performers in all aspects of life, whether it's sports, business, science, medicine, they've all achieved great successes after remarkable lows. And it's really helped change their trajectory for their careers. And I believe that this is a period of time where many successful people of the future will focus their energy and skills on undervalued skills, which is the mental and emotional skills. And these skills are going to enable people to come up with new ways to approach sports, education, relationships, business, and communication. I also believe that this is a time where we're demonstrating the value of personal, in-person connectivity. And we miss going to school, we miss being with our friends and family, going to sporting events, and so much more. And I've been telling people that I speak with that the virus is a lot like the movie Avatar, where we're all connected and where the decisions that we make affect other people's health and even fiscally. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guests who are going to address the challenges and obstacles that a lot of us are facing and discuss skills and exercises that are going to help strengthen our mental and emotional skills. So first off, I'd like to introduce Marcus Rogan. He's a 4-time Olympian from 2004, 2008, 2004, 2008, and 2012. He has 2 Olympic medals and many others on the international stage. He's now a psychologist in Beverly Hills, California, working with athletes, and was the director of performance psychology for the Brazilian Olympic team in Rio 2016. He's also written a book called Performance Psychology. Our next guest is Dan Jacobs. He started Machine Aquatics in the Washington, D.C. metro area in 2001 with his wife, Paris. Many of you know Paris. She's been on the board of USA Swimming and is involved in ISL and other aspects of American swimming. Machine Aquatics is currently one of the most prestigious teams in the United States of America. His bio specifically states that his objective is to be the best swim coach on the planet and never stop learning. And this is a perspective on life that we respect very, very much. And Dan has a wide-ranging perspective on the pandemic and how not only it's affecting him and his loved ones, but how it's affecting his membership for his team and coaches and everyone that works for his various businesses. And finally, my good friend, the other guys are good friends too, but my good friend, my right-hand partner in business, Brett Hawke. He's director of swim camps for Fitter and Faster. He is a 2-time Olympian as a swimmer. He's coached athletes at the past 3 Olympic Games. And several of the athletes he's coached have broken records and won most prestigious medals on the international stage. And Brett's a firm believer in how the mental approach affects performance in all aspects of life. So please welcome everybody. And Marcus, where do you want to start?
Well, David, I'm really appreciate and honored to be here. You know, it's amazing what you've done, you know, from a leadership perspective. Because I remember, you know, growing up, Olympians were like, you couldn't access them, right? You saw them every 4 years in TV. And you've kind of taken that very much like your introduction from like a personal starting point and saying, look, if you want to know what Olympians do to win, you got to see them. You got to meet them. You got to, you know, when there's no pandemic, be in the water with them. And you took it, you know, you took the mystery out of what it is to win world championships and put it in pools across America. And that's just amazing what you've done. So I'm honored to be here with you. Dan, I'm excited to meet you today. It's kind of like, you know, I know Apple and I know the iPad and I know Machine Aquatics, but I never know Steve Jobs or you. So I'm really excited to listen to your perspective today. And Brett, I met you as a fierce competitor. You know, unbelievable what you did in the pool. And then actually, I hated you for a long time when you were coach at Auburn because we at Stanford never had a chance against you. So incredible what you did as a coach. And now I recently discovered or found that you're also a published author, and specifically one chapter you wrote on self-confidence really struck me as a psychologist. So really excited. You know, but what I'm most curious about from all of you guys is I'd love to know also more about you, and what would you say is the most important mental skill and why?
Well, thank you. I'd like to just say thank you, and I'll let Dan speak in a moment. I will just say this. I just got a text from 3-time Olympic gold medalist Lenny Kreiselberg, and he told me specifically, he said, tell Marcus not to be too serious. said he's watching right now. So
man, I'm glad he sent that text.
We appreciate him watching. But yeah, anyway, so well, I'll let Dan speak because he's in it right now. He's leading one of the biggest programs in the country, and he's an incredible coach. So let's hear from Dan real quick. Oh, we need your sound.
Your volume, Dan.
Yeah, turn that back on. No, soundless.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Why don't we go to Brett and then Dan? You figure. Are you there, Dan? You got you?
Dan,
no.
See, no.
Look, some of the best coaches, they know when not to speak.
Good point. But yes, Marcus, we're very pleased to have you as well because you're obviously a doctor. You're an Olympic medalist. You are an incredible competitor yourself. So you understand what we're trying to do here. You've written books about it. You've got your own workbook, which I think is incredible, the one that David just showed all of us. So just talk to us briefly about why you think people can be doing things right now to improve their swimming, even stuck at home.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? A lot of people say when there's a break, and all I can do is push-ups, right, and squats, and you know the luckier ones, right, who have pool in their backyards, you know, get some workouts in. What we can really do right now is take a look at your mind, because that's something we often ignore, and we then maybe watch some old Michael Jordan videos and say that's mental skills training, but that's not what it is, right? That's what we're here today to like take a deeper dive into it. Most people just think mental skills are just, well, that's just one thing. But the truth is if you break it down, there are 17 individual dynamics that make up mental skills. And the most important of them is to recognize that you're not going to be good at all of them, and to recognize through awareness which one you suck at. You know, you're probably not going to be good at everything. And specifically, if you look at them, like goal setting is a big one that a lot of athletes struggle with. And you can go deeper into goal setting and realize that it's not just, I want to be an Olympian, but that it has to be specific, has to be measurable, has to be achievable, it has to be relevant, and it has to be time sensitive, right? Smart goals. There has to be a clear framework instead of just saying, I want to be an Olympian. And that's just one of the 17, right? The idea is that you've got to be specific about which mental skill you train and how you train it. Like very much like Brett, what you did with Caesar, absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, so I think that was one of your questions, right? You were interested in asking us what we think is one of the most important mental skills that we can train. And for me, one of the things I did with Cesar Cielo in the lead up to the 2008 Olympic Games, right before he won the 50 freestyle, as we know, became Olympic champion at the age of 21. It was the first time he'd ever been to the Olympics, so it was a new environment for him. We're in China. He'd never been to China before, so millions of people watching. So you have to prepare yourself physically, but mentally. We all hear this all the time, right? That, it's when you're at a competition, it's 90% is mental and 10% is physical, right? Like you've already done the work to get there. Now it's really that your mind takes over. And so we had to prepare for that moment. And I, as a swimmer myself who'd been in an Olympic final, I know what it feels like to stand behind the blocks, look down the pool, and feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, literally. And so I knew I had to prepare him for that moment. So the skill that I believe in the most at that point in time for me is visualization. You have to be able to visualize yourself performing and winning way before you even get to the blocks. And so we did a lot of work on visualization, and we can go into some of those skills that we worked on later. But I just wanted to kind of introduce that as my real important aspect of mental training that I think you need to work on. So
one thing, Brett, yeah, I'd love to learn more about what you did with Caesar, because he surprised the hell out of a lot of people, including himself, based on what I read. One thing I want to address that Dan, right? It doesn't have sound right now, but that to me is just fascinating, right? So I might overanalyze, right, as a psychologist here, but one of the really important mental skills is also being aware of body language, right? And if you imagine, Dan, can you hear us? But you can't speak, right? So the idea is, my guess is, Dan, as a leading coach, you would recognize body language in any athlete. Is that true? Oh, let's see if that works.
I think you have to log off, Dan, and log back on. Yeah, log off and log back on.
Yeah, why don't we log him off and log back on, and and let's start addressing the challenges that people at home are facing today, right? Whether it's the children who have been swimming, the parents of those swimmers, and the coaches. We're all faced with challenges that need to be overcome and have a way of dealing with them. And I know that in our conversations, we've discussed a number of great skills that can be applied. So, Marcus, let's start talking about some of the current situation and how people who are tuning in can learn a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So addressing the parents and swimmers at home, and probably also coaches at home, the most important thing is to not pretend that it's perfect, right? That's a really, really key mental skill, to just not pretend. Don't pretend that everything is wonderful and everything's great and this is going to be amazing. Recognize the parts that you struggle with. And the key here is to have a trusted partner, which may not be your spouse, maybe the very opposite of the spouse, but to have somebody you trust that you can talk to about this, right? That if I'm like, hey, my confidence right now is low, I want to call Brett and be like, hey, man, can we talk about this, right? I don't want to, if you're going around and saying, hey, everything's wonderful, everything's wonderful, everything's wonderful, but you don't feel it and it's not authentic to you, then that's going to do more harm than good. So step one in what's going on right now is all about honesty and awareness and being like, hey, If I'm struggling, I got to admit I'm struggling. Then we can go on, okay, where do you want to go from here? But step one is, hey, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then
So,
figure out where you want to go.
Dan, have there been any moment? Welcome back, and I hope we can hear you. Can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you?
Yes, we can. Yeah, welcome to the room. It's nice to hear your
goodness.
voice. Are there certain challenges? I don't know if you got to hear everything that Marcus just said, but have you had moments of weakness over the last? And I guess I'd ask the same question to everybody here in this room, because I want to also be able to relate to the people who are watching and not just tell people what to do. You know, we all have moments of weakness, and I know I certainly have as well. And I'd be happy to talk about some of those moments. But, you know, Dan, why don't you open up first, since you haven't been heard? Tell us about some of your moments of weakness.
Well, first of all, what an honor it is to be here with you guys. And I appreciate everybody checking in and checking out this webinar, because it's pretty cool. And I think it's incredibly valuable in what Marcus is bringing, and Brett and David, all of you guys. It's a huge part of what we do. I mean, while the mental side is even more important than the physical side most of the time. And speaking of weaknesses, we or having weak moments, or if that's what we're talking about, because I did miss the last few minutes. As a coach, you know, our first goal is to take care of our swimmers and our athletes, and secondary, which is very close behind, is taking care of our coaches and making sure they're okay. And, you know, a lot of friends around the country that are coaches, and they're amazing people and human beings and incredible coaches. And I've been talking to a lot of them recently that hopefully some of you guys are watching right now, but we are having weak moments. I mean, we are struggling with not seeing our athletes every single day, because we're, you know, let's be honest, we see these kids and these young adults, you know, 3, sometimes 4 hours a day, more than we see our own children, and more than they see their parents. So, I mean, they mean a lot to us. And so, you know, we struggle as well as coaches, not being able to have our regular schedule, and not being able to, give our knowledge that we have, and our task as coaches to push these guys through thresholds and levels of pain and tolerance that we do on a daily basis. And the amazing thing about you guys as athletes is that you respond to everything that we throw at you. And even when we're like, man, they're never going to be able to handle this, and then we give you some crazy set or some nutty thing that we thought about, and next thing you know, you're crushing it, and you just completely exceeded our expectations. So, you know, hopefully I just answered that question, because I did miss a little bit of what you said, Marcus, and I apologize for that.
No, I mean, you're right, and you just talked about some physical pain that you miss, you know, by putting your athletes through, and like you said, right now, I think all of us can relate to the fact that we're dealing with some mental pain, right? We have to sit, we can't do the things that we normally do that make us comfortable, that we're used to doing. We're out of our routines, so we're certainly in kind of a mental stress right now, and so that's why we've put this together. Is, well, what are the things that we can learn from this that are going to help us be better athletes? And what are the things that we can do each day to address the things that are confronting us and deal with those things, you know? Because I'm the same as you. Like, I look around my house, I'm like, all right, what am I going to do today? Like, I'm not doing my usual thing. So then you have this mental torture of trying to figure that out. So we're all in that position right now, and I think that's where Marcus, as a doctor in psychotherapy, what is actually based? Talk to me about that, Marcus. What is a psychotherapist anyway?
So a psychotherapist is someone who helps people understand their feelings.
Okay,
basically.
good. I need that then today.
I need it too. But maybe I can share one specific tool, right, of what all of us can do, what I need to do every day just to show up, right? And Dan, I love what you said, like the pain of the coaches. What I heard you say is like, you and you know a lot of coaches do, and I know you do, get a lot of meaning out of pushing the athletes, right? It's a very meaningful work. It's not like you're not like running around on Wall Street making $1 billion. You're helping someone get a little bit better and feel a little bit more confident and achieve something in their lives. And there's a deep meaning that goes with that. And when we don't have that, that's really hard. But here's a tool that we can do, okay? If you think about it, like our screen, right? There's a very simple graph. This is the basic law of psychology, okay? It's most basic thing, but it's really, really powerful. And if you think on the one side, right, of the screen, there's a level of performance, right? Like low means, well, you suck. High means you're very, very good. And medium is an average performance, right? And across the screen, you imagine your level of energy, right? At the bottom end, or I guess the far end, you say, hey, this is low level of energy. And at the other end, there is a high level of energy, right? So we have low energy, high energy, and we have low performance, high performance. And now here's the magic. The way these two things relate, energy and performance, and that's true in the pool, that's true in the office, that's true in relationships, it's true across all aspects of life, it's called an inverted U across the screen if you think about it.
Okay.
If you have low energy, yeah, exactly, like the frown. Yeah. So if you have low energy, you're going to deliver a low performance no matter what. Then there's an optimal level of energy where you're going to deliver your highest possible performance. But then, and a lot of people forget about this, if you have too much energy, your performance actually declines. And that's true in the pool, right? If you're too anxious, right, you want to destroy everything, you're not going to swim the best time. It's true in business. If you're too desperate for a deal, you're not going to make that deal if you have too much energy. And it's true in relationships. Like I'm guilty of sometimes looking my wife in the face and saying, I'm not angry. What are you talking about? Right? So the most important thing is to recognize what is your optimal level of energy to deliver the performance you want to do, and what do you need to get there? And that's very, very different for everybody. But the idea is that you could have too little or too much energy. And what are you going to do to get to that optimal level of energy?
But that's an interesting point, Marcus, because a lot of people are working from home for the first time, right? A lot of people, and those people now have their children at home. So it's not only a matter of energy level, it's a matter of really rethinking how you've approached the work you've done in the past to be equally or more successful than you've been in the past. And I've had to do that, right? So, a lot of people would say, oh, Dave, your life hasn't changed a whole lot. You always work from home. Really the only thing that's ever changed for you is you don't take your kid to swim practice every single day and then, out to breakfast before school. And otherwise your life is pretty much the same. But that's actually not true, because now I have both my kids here during the day. And I want to show them love and affection. And when they come in to say hello, I'm not going to just, kick them out, although they have been told right now to please try to stay out of here. And there are and my wife is home, and there are other factors that I have to deal with. So, there was a little bit of a period of time here where I'm like, oh my God, I'm just trying to get my work done. How do I get them to fit into my environment? And that actually wasn't what I needed to do. What I needed to do was adjust how I approached my day so that I can find the solitude that I needed to, right? So, I traditionally used to wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to start my workday. And it was mostly because I didn't want to get incoming phone calls and other distractions and stimulus that would get me diverted, right? Now with this pandemic, this plague, I have less of a reason to wake up early because there's less business to do, right? Right now we're postponing camps, we're doing other things, but the work we're doing is fulfilling, but it's different type of work. So I started waking up an hour, 2 hours later, rolling into my day. I started making breakfast for the kids. And that was nice, but it wasn't really working for me because I was losing out on that solitude. So I went back to waking up at 4:30 in the morning and finding that 3-4 hours of time where I can just get a lot of stuff done. And that was really important for me. So to answer your question on, what do I think is the most important mental skill right now? I think it's perspective. I think it's understanding where you fit into the whole scheme of things, whether it's within your house, but also within all of society right now. Everybody is connected to the same event and wants the same outcome. And if we're irresponsible socially, we're going to make other people sick. If we're irresponsible fiscally, companies are going to go out of business. So it's understanding where you fit in and knowing that at your level, whether you're running a company with 1,000 employees or you're running a household and you're an employee for another company, you have a responsibility and the ability to contribute to society and really have an impact. And that's a real thing. And anyway, I'm sorry for being long-winded, but I think it's important to understand those things, and perhaps there's some exercises that you guys are doing that we could further talk about.
Yeah, I did want to ask Dan his thought on this, because I know Marcus had this question in regards to what we think are powerful or the most important mental skills, and Dan had his own opinion. And then I'd like to come back to Marcus, and you had mentioned 17 actual skills that we can work on. I want you to list those skills because I want to hear what they are for people, because 17 seems like a lot, because sometimes when you think of mental training, you're like, what do I do? And then when you actually list the 17, it's like, oh, there's so many things that I can do. So we'll go with Dan first.
All right. I know we were talking before the chat started, the webinar started, and I was going to speak on awareness a little bit. I think that's one of the most important ones. I think they're all important, obviously. And when Marcus lists it out, you guys will hear and see what we're talking about. But I think awareness means so many things when you're an athlete or just a person. It's you're aware of your surroundings, what you're dealing with, what's going on around you, your body awareness of what you can do and your limits of what you can do and how you push through those limits. Connectivity of how you connect your body parts together, muscle groups, things like that, and your mental awareness. I guess that kind of goes over what I just said about knowing your limits and being able to push beyond those limits. So there's so many variables that go into the word awareness that it's hard to just say in a couple sentences. Yeah. We could probably break down each part of that into a whole webinar. But I think it's incredibly important just to be aware of your teammates, of your coaches, of other people's feelings when you're in a training group or on deck with other coaches. You got to think about that stuff a lot. We go over in my national training group quite a bit about respecting each other and leaving 5 seconds apart or 3 seconds apart, and you piss people off when you leave too early, and little silly things like that make a big difference in practice. If you're slower, if you're not a good breaststroker, let the breaststroker go ahead of you during a breaststroke set or an IM set or something like that. But I think, again, touching back on the connectivity part about not just swimming with, your arms and legs, but connecting muscle groups together so that you're being more efficient, more powerful. Simple things like pushing your hips forward slightly when you're kicking so that you're engaging your abs. So you're kicking with your abs all the way through your toes. Simple things like that make a big difference when you're training and make you stronger and more connected. And I know, again, I can go off on tangents about each one, but I think that at least is a good overview of what I feel like awareness is. And I know there's other things that are involved in that, but maybe we should hear some of the other stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that. Thanks. Appreciate it. Marcus, so talk to us about the 17 different mental skills that you have identified.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'll give you a big list. First, I want to say to David, I mean, really good example of understanding and also a form of awareness and perspective, recognizing that your best time to work is at 4:30 to 7:30 in the morning, right? That takes a lot of being like, a lot of check-in, right? Like, when am I my best? What do I need? And what can I do to get that, right? That itself, like, to someone who's an experienced leader of a company is easy, but to really look at those steps, right? What do I need? What can I do to get it? That's already powerful. And Dan, I love what you said. Awareness, right? Like the three different levels, right? Self-awareness, awareness of the other, and awareness of the group as a whole. That's really, really powerful. And I want to give a tool specifically on awareness. But first, here are the 17 specific mental skills that I found are most effective with professional athletes. Ready for the list here?
Is this something we can send after the webinar? We'll take some notes on that, and we'll send this out also to you. You can take notes at home, but we'll send out a list to you in our follow-up email after the event.
Yep.
All right. So we got goal setting. That's a big one, right? Be clear about what your goals are. Then activation and realization. That's the tool I just talked about, which is have enough energy when you need it, or make sure you don't have too much. Then flow, which is that effortless sense, easy speed. We as swimmers all know that. Awareness is what Dan talks about, and I'm going to give a tool on awareness that's really scary and powerful at the same time. Then motivation is the next one. Can you bring it? And also, what's your why? What's your why? Learning from failure is a big one. That's also what David talked about, right? He literally gave an example of how he learned from failure. He got up, got kind of lazy, and, well, I don't know if he failed, but it was a failure enough to recognize I got to make a change versus just blame everyone else around him, right? That's a really important mental skill. Then real-time resilience. I loved, Dan, I got to say, I loved watching you when you didn't have a sound. I watched your body language very closely. You didn't look like a man in crisis. You look like someone who's been in tough situations before, right? Real-time resilience. That's like learning quickly and adjusting and compensating and figuring it out. Next one is focus. And focus, that's really big. A lot of people think focus is on or off, but that's just, forgive my French, that's bovine excrement. That's just bullshit. What is, you're always focused on something. Maybe you focus on everything and that's too much and you got to narrow it down. Or maybe you focus too narrow and you got to broaden it up, right? But focus is something that is always on something, and you just have to be aware of what it is. Then visualization, which again, there's just such a beautiful example of what visualization really can be with what Brett did with Caesar Cielo. That's just unbelievable. I hope we can send that part of the book out to people, because it's such a perfect example. Visualization. Self-confidence. Self-confidence is a big one. And some would argue, including Brett, I loved in your writing, right? How you have multiple smaller mental skills that then build up to self-confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Confidence is also its own skill. Then there's a whole subset of clinical dynamics. That's kind of an aside, but it's important to not ignore the, like, depression, anxiety, more clinical issues that you just have to be aware of if that's something. If that's, think of it like an injury, right? You have a broken arm, you got to know you have a broken arm. Then teamwork, that's a big one. I know that's big at machine aquatics, right? Trust. Can you trust yourself? Can you trust your teammate? Tolerance of conflict. That's a big one. That's something families and teams often struggle with.
Oh, was that one again? Say it again.
Tolerance of conflict.
Oh, okay, tolerance.
It means like, hey, I'm leaving a couple seconds early, and I can actually tolerate someone else saying, hey, leave on time, without thinking I'm a horrible person and that person hates me. That person just wants to make sure I leave on time, right? I have to have a tolerance of conflict with that. Commitment is another one. Like, am I able to do what I say and say what I do, right? Accountability. Am I willing to be held to the commitment I made, right? Am I willing to look Dan in the eye if Dan said, hey, Marcus, leave on time? And if I don't leave on time, I'm going to be able to be like accountable for that. I'm going to blame someone else for it. Then results. Do I understand? Hey, at the end, we're not a kumbaya crew, right? We are working to achieve results. And are we willing to put our name under those results, right? Then leadership. That's a big one. Like, what kind of leader are you? Do you want to be a leader? Did I count that right? Is that 17?
Yes,
that was.
That's the COVID-17, man. I like that. That's all I had. Sorry.
Good one. Good one.
I like it. Yeah, good stuff, man. I like the way that you gave a little example of each one too, because again, like when you think of mental skills or mental toughness, you don't really know what comes to mind, and you don't know how to train it. But when you break it down into a set of skills like this, 17 of them, and you go through each one, and you like you just did. If you're at home and you just wrote down the 17 like I did, then put an example of what each one means to you within that, or write a sentence, write a paragraph on each one of these things. And these are the things that you can be training now. While there's nothing else going on, you can be training these 17 mental skills so that when you do end up going back to practice that machine with Dan, and he's pushing you and he's riding you, you've got the ability to mentally cope with the physical stress that he's putting you under. And then when you go to a competition, you're able to deal with the mental stress that you're under, because you've trained these things and you've become aware of these things as well. So I think these are really important skills. I'm glad that we have identified them. And I think we want to maybe dig into a couple while we're here as well. Did you want me to?
I have a question. I have a question, Marcus. And I think I kind of know the answer to this, but I just thought I'd ask. You don't have to be a master at all 17 of these skills to be successful, right? I think it's understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and understanding that you may have certain areas to improve upon, but then also understanding the strengths and weaknesses of other people and appreciating them for that, right? And understanding how you fit into it. And that's what's also going to help you, get along better with your coworkers, get along better with, your family of 4, 6, 10, or however many are in your house during quarantine, and understanding like what can you control and what can you influence, and what do you just want to avoid. So I think that it's interesting to hear all these things, and then seeing what you can, work on and improve on. Because we're going to have another 4 to 8 weeks of this quarantine, and these are skills that are applicable in life, but I think they're as applicable right now. Very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Well, David, I'm fully with you that if you claim that if anyone claims I'm a master at all 17, I can already tell you suck at least one, which is awareness. So I've never met anybody who's good at all of them. And here's a tool that, because Brett said you can actually train this right now. I want to give you a tool on how to actually train it.
Please.
And I'm sure you actually know this tool already, but here's how it works. You start with someone you trust. Hopefully they're in your house right now, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're a phone call away. You start with someone you trust, and you ask them, hey, what do you know about me that I don't know? What do you see in me? Which of these mental skills maybe, and maybe give them a list, right? Which of these mental skills do you think I should work on? If they know you, they really know you, they're going to tell you right away. But it's super scary to ask someone else. It's super scary to ask someone else, hey, what's the weakness you see in me? Might not be able to see.
Brett, what's the weakness you see in me?
What's the weakness I see in you? Okay, let's go down this list here, David.
Hey, man, I'm putting myself out there. Be kind.
I know. I don't know. I mean, you are good. I mean, look, highly successful people have figured out these skills very well in a way that
I got
hard to find weaknesses for sure, but there are areas where we could all be better. I don't think that you're necessarily weak in any of these areas. You're a great leader. You love results. You're very accountable. You're super committed. I think that you have a.
Where am I weak?
Yeah, I'm running down the list because I'm like, where is his weakness? You're a good teamwork. You're very self-confident. You've got that one under control. I don't know. Yeah, you visualize, focus, resilient. You're definitely resilient because look, we're in a time of crisis, and you're bringing people together here more than anyone in the country right now. So we're very thankful for that. You've had failures, and you've admitted those failures to me before, and so you've certainly learned from your failures. Awareness, flow. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Where do you think you're weak? I don't know. I mean, you're pretty strong. In
Self-confidence. I think
Okay.
self-confidence is my weakness. I think that's a big one for me. I fear coming up short. I don't like to disappoint people. I over-explain myself sometimes. And then it gets misconstrued, and then I just get seen as annoying. And I think that weakness has led me at periods of time to be unhappy, and sad, and I think that having gone through those periods of time in my past, I'm 49 years old. I don't know if I look it, but I'm 49 years old. So I've been around the block. I've been through 9/11. I've gone through difficult times with my company and other aspects of life. So I think some of those experiences are giving me some perspective and awareness of what needs to get done. That's what it is for me, and I just want to create a forum where people can be honest with themselves and understand that they're not alone right now.
Man, David, I just feel that right here, man. The courage to say that right here, right now. Just wow. Talk about great leadership, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's also I'm willing to address my my fears. I don't really ever worry about failing or being embarrassed. I really don't give a shit. I try to be transparent. So maybe that's one of the strengths. But the self-confidence, that's what it is for me.
Dan, what would your swimmers say your weakness is? If we turn the chat back on and your swimmers are listening right now, what do you think they'd come at you with?
That's a tough one. It's one of those things where I guess I'm too close to myself to understand what I'm doing wrong.
Let's go back to chat then. Let's turn this chat on. Let's see what they say.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
If you're out there and you want to dance swimmers right now, put your name to this, okay? Let's see.
I didn't realize this was going to be an intervention.
Well, David took it to the next level. David took it to the next level.
Yeah, it was very personal. That was pretty incredible. Marcus, as an Olympic medalist, was there where did you identify one of your weaknesses when you were competing?
So I wish, again, by the way, I'm very curious about the chat to see if anyone talks about what Dan.
Oh, man.
It's popping up, Dan. You got
a very good leader.
Get some swimmers popping up.
You don't look 40.
Hey, Marcus, don't change the subject, man.
All right. So where was my weakness? You know the thing I talked about earlier with the level of energy. I deep down in my heart, Brett, I wish I was a freestyle sprinter. I think the 50, 100 free, those are glorious events.
Yes.
And actually last summer at Masters Nationals, I lost to Anthony Irvin by 3/10. I I was very bummed about that, but I'm working actually on my freestyle sprint. I actually would love a coaching session with you to work on that further. And actually I tried to be a freestyle sprinter, but I failed. And why? Because I never figured out that optimal level of energy. I think I always, for sprinting, I never could figure out how should I show up in the ready room to deliver everything I had in a 50 or 100. I could always do it in a 200 or maybe a 400. 200 was ideal for me. That's where I broke the world record. But in the 50 and 100, I could never put it all out there. I think maybe I was too scared, but I really struggle with giving my all energy or sprinting right. That was my biggest weakness.
Nice. You got any comments popping up there, Dan? You see any of your swimmers putting their name to anything?
I see. I see that I'm. One of my weaknesses is technology, apparently. So
I see one here, man. I see his one. This is Kevin Long. Awesome that he says this. He says is a powerful force. His one weakness might be spreading himself too thin. He wants to be everywhere all the time.
Who's this? Oh, Dan.
That is true.
Kevin Long.
Kevin's one of our coaches.
Oh, okay.
So he's telling me the truth. He knows it. It's that is maybe an issue that I have, just trying to maybe not please everybody, but always wanting to help everyone and trying to do too much. I think that my wife and I both are guilty of that, of spreading ourselves too thin sometimes. Yeah. But that's something that we have tried to work on, and delegating and giving more responsibility to other coaches and to admin staff, things like that. Kind of lightening the load, because we have some amazing people that work with us. And I like to say with, because I don't like it. So we're owners of the club and of our swim school and performance center, but we don't own anyone. We work with people because we have amazing human beings that work with us that help us all become better. And so I think that's an important thing that I have learned over the years, is to delegate and to give responsibility to people because they're really good, and don't try to do everything, because a lot of times they know better or are more capable of doing those things than I am, or some other people on our staff are. So hats off to our staff and to, from the admin to the coaches that do all the work for us and for all of us. So hopefully that answers the question, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Marcus, I want to ask you something as a psychotherapist, because I wonder this. I haven't had therapy on it, but one of my biggest weaknesses was I had a tremendous fear of failure. So I would actually throw up in the warm-up pool. And it was very, very hard for me to admit that to people. Since I've become a head coach and I talk to some of my teams about being under pressure and fear of failure, I have talked to some people about this, but at first as an athlete, I was very, very embarrassed by it. Even to the point of at the Athens Olympics, right before the final, I'm warming up and I'm struggling to move my arms because I have this feeling that I'm going to throw up, and I'm in the warm-up pool and there's people all around me. And I'm like 25 meters away from the end of the pool, and I'm thinking, I'm going to throw up right now. I can't get to the wall. So I sprint to the wall, and just as I get to the wall, I just throw up my breakfast, because I actually had trouble eating lunch that day because I just felt so sick to my stomach, because the pressure was building up that I'm in the Olympic final. I'm racing the best athletes in the world. There's this thought of, I could lose the Olympics. I wasn't thinking that I could win. I was thinking I could lose at that point in time. Like my whole dream and being and identity was wanting to be an Olympic champion. And at that very moment in time, my initial response was I wanted to throw up. So talk to me about that, because I know that some swimmers do have a response like that.
Well, first, this is more testament to David with the leadership he took on this conversation, right? Vulnerability and openness leads to more of that. And Dan, thank you for sharing about being open to the feedback you're getting from the teammates. By the way, I read the worst one, right? You got like 90 chats saying what amazing guy you are, and some people are saying that they wish they wanted to join Machine Aquatics. and Brett also just love that you sharing that. Love it, and there's many reasons for that, but you named them. You were right there, and your level of awareness is obviously extremely high, because you're saying your whole identity, right? All of who you were was tied up in that race.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one, right? That you put, because the people who love you would not say, hey, you need to be Olympic champion or not, right? So but a lot of athletes over-identify with their results, right? So that's one. The other is, it's also about energy, right? What is throwing up really? Throwing up, what it really is giving up some energy.
Mm.
The body was saying, I have too much intention and power. I need to give up some. I need to get rid of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's two. And the third, and this is the scariest part, is that sometimes others seeing that we're nervous or anxious makes us more nervous or anxious.
Mm.
Right? Part of it was that you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be seen by others, be discovered. I'm not going to be able to do what you just did right here, right now, which is, we're going to be okay with it.
Sure.
So all those three combined lead to throwing up. But I wish that I had heard that when I was 10, 15, 18 from someone like you, an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
That would have helped me certainly growing up and realizing that my nervousness, my over-energy was also normal.
So what are some more of the skills that we could practice at home that people tuning in right now can do right home to help them, get some perspective on, this period of time and come out of this thing, stronger than the way they entered?
Mm-hmm. So we talked about energy regulation, like understanding what your perfect level of energy is. That's one. Awareness is two, right? Calling someone you trust or finding someone you trust and be like, what do you know about me that I don't know? That's two. And the third one that you can really hit big this time is visualization. That's a huge one. And then Brett, are you open to sharing what you wrote in the book? Because it's such a perfect example of visualization.
Yeah, I knew taking a young athlete to the Olympic Games in Cesar Cielo. He'd never been there before. He'd never been to China. I knew we were going into a very foreign environment. And so I knew that at the point of performance, I wanted him to be able to perform, right? Basically, I didn't want him to be caught up with all the other things that are going on. And that's kind of where we are right now, too. There are so many things going on. You put on CNN or you listen to this person or you watch this podcast or whatever's going on, all this information has come in and it's very distracting and you don't know what to believe. You don't know what's right. There's a lot of anxiety that's built up because of where we're at right now, right? I'm feeling anxious at times, so I can identify. So I knew that he would feel anxious going into the Olympic final and I wanted to prepare him. So we actually we were doing a training camp in China. We went downtown one day to the busiest street. I asked the taxi driver to take us to the busiest street in China, where we were. We're actually in Macau, and he took us down there. And I said to Caesar, "Okay, we're going to walk from here, and we're going to go all the way down this road." And it was basically just a straight walk, but there were people everywhere. I mean, just thousands of people everywhere. And I said, "What I want you to do is I want you to walk in as straight a line as you possibly can, and as you're walking, I want you to try and just have all people around you disappear. And I want you to think about your race. I want you to think about how you're going to feel in warm-up. I want you to think about putting your sweats on. I want you to think about putting your suit on. I want you to think about preparing your cap and goggles. I want you to think about going to the ready room and sitting there with all your competitors. I want you to think about the crowd outside. I want you to think about walking to the blocks. I want you to think about taking your sweats off and looking down the pool. I want you to think about how you're going to feel specifically inside of your body. What are the feelings you're going to feel? I want you to feel those things. And as you're walking down the street with all these people around you, I want you to block all that out because it's all just noise. And I want you to really visualize your race. I want you to visualize your performance. I want you to feel every stroke. I want you to visualize yourself touching first. I want you to see your reaction and how you're going to win and what you're going to do. I want you to have a very clear understanding from the moment you get to the pool to the moment you win the Olympic Games. I want you to see it all. I want you to feel it all while all this is going on. And so we just went for a walk, and I could see him. It was hard for him at first. You know, the first few steps, it was kind of like he was dodging people. But then towards the end of the walk, he was very relaxed, and I could see his state, his physical state completely change. And I could see the people around him moving out of his way because you could see this man in a zone, kind of like a trance-like zone, was just walking down the street, and people were getting out of his way, and they were not bumping into him or anything. And by the end of it, his palms were sweaty. I mean, he had a sweat down his face. I could see the emotion in him. I could see visually when he won the Olympics in his mind. I could see all these things. And it took us about 15 minutes. And at the end of the 15-minute walk, he said, "I'm ready." And I knew at that point,
man, did anyone else get goosebumps?
That's
Holy,
cool,
That is awesome, man.
language.
But that's what it's about. And here's the thing, man. I'm just going to put it right out there. 98% of athletes in swimming, and I've been running fitter and faster for more than 10 years, don't get it. They don't get it. They show up to practice. They take a hard workout. They work up a sweat. They get thirsty afterwards. They go home. They go to sleep. They do the same thing. And it's that mental connection, man, that separates the very, very best athletes in the world from everyone else. And this is a strength that everyone who is in quarantine right now and isolation and at home or whatever, this is the strength that people can harness and will be able to improve. And you're going to be shocked how it affects you positively when you get back to school, sport, business, and everything else. 100% positive of it, man. And you even see it at the very, 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 very top level of the sport. So while you have like Olympians and NCAA champions and those go in Division I, at the very top level, and I've worked with Olympic champions and, you know, track and field, skiing, swimming, yada, yada, yada. When you're talking about Olympic gold medalists, particularly multiple-time Olympic gold medalists, the mental makeup is different. It's different. People who say that the 50 freestyle is a crapshoot have no idea. There is a reason why Gary Hall Jr. is a two-time Olympic champion in the 50 freestyle. If it was a crapshoot, that wouldn't have happened. There's a reason why Anthony Irvin, perhaps the greatest sprinter, I'll even put it out there, one of the greatest natural swimmers in the history of the sport, won an Olympic gold medal 16 years apart. Popov repeating. It's the mental strength of these athletes and the determination. It's impeccable. And everybody puts in the same amount of work. Everybody goes to the same amount of practices. It's, you know, the body types, there's similarities in body types. It's the mind, man. And that's what separates people. And that's what makes people successful in sport. That's what makes people successful in business, in their lives, in their marriages, in their relationships, and everything else. And what you did with Caesar, with the visualization, he was able to dial in. He was able to dial in with the chaos and just focus on what he needed to do. And the media was going to become irrelevant. All the noise was going to become irrelevant. He was able to go through an exercise that neutralized everything else. And that's amazing. And the fact that you were able to do that, you had to be a visionary and a leader to do that. And that's why I love you. And so I appreciate you for that.
No worries.
Oh. Wow.
So yeah, I got goosebumps, but I got more than just goosebumps
Definitely.
after that. That was amazing.
What do you think, Dan? Can you relate to that at all?
Oh man, that's impressive. I mean, I think visualization is crucial. What Brett was talking about, and I think that like the way that when Cesar was walking down the road, I mean down the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden people started going around him. I think you really put off an energy when you were focused like that, and I think that people have energy that they put out there, and it can be negative or it can be positive, and I think that you know, you get that with your kids in practice all the time. Your kids come in, they have a great attitude, they're focused, they're doing what they got to do, and it starts becoming, you know, it starts becoming. They catch on, they feel it. They the other kids in the group start acting the same way, and so it's contagious. You know, not to use contagious might be the worst word right now to use about anything, but contagious in a good way.
Yeah.
So I love the energy. I love the visualization of knowing, being in tune with your body and being connected. And I think that you can connect on a mental and physical level. You know what I mean, with your athletes and with your coaches and with everybody around you, with your friends, with your family. So I think this is great. This has been a really, really cool and interesting group, and I love the fact that I had the opportunity to sit here and talk with you guys. It's been an inspiration to me as well. I have all kinds of ideas that I'm going to go and do with my group over the next few weeks. So it's exciting. I'm ready. I'm ready to move.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, appreciate it, Marcus. We haven't really been fair to you because at one stage of your career, you were one of the greatest athletes in the world by a long way. So it's incredible that you are a doctor as well. Just tell us your background real quick on where you studied, because it's super impressive at the time that you were, winning Olympic medals as well. Talk to us about that real quick.
Well, one thing I want to say, because people might be asking how they can practice visualization, what you do with Cesar right now. And obviously you can't take a taxi to Macau, and even if you did, the street would be empty.
Yeah.
What you can do right now is turn on CNN and then try to visualize right in front of it. Try to block that out. Just fade that away. Right in front of the TV, fade it out and go into your race. Drown out. There's enough noise. You can turn off enough iPhones, gadgets, TVs, MacBook, whatever, right? You can turn it all on and see if you can tone it out and visualize.
100%. Yeah.
You don't need the street in Macau. You just need all the gadgets that are driving us crazy. My background, I also struggled with self-confidence. So I why do people get doctorates, right? Because they desperately want to prove that they're smart. So that's what I did. I studied at a bunch of different places, but at the end of the day, what I really wanted to be able to do is connect with people the way I was very lucky to have some amazing coaches in my life. Big shout out to Dan. You might know him, Jeff King. He's Nation's Capital. Oh, that man!
Kingfish, man. He's amazing.
I love that man. He's
a good human being.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, listen, we appreciate it. We're going over an hour. There's a lot of quality information here. This webinar is going to be sent out to everybody as well, so don't worry about that. David also alluded to the fact that we're going to be sending out a list of the 17 mental skills. Obviously, this is a topic that is of great interest to a lot of people, so thank you.
I just also sent out a link. We have a little survey. If you see my name in blue over there, Fitter and Fastest, David Arluck. So I sent out a link to a little survey. We'd like to learn a little bit more about, how this hour has perhaps helped you, and try to tap into some other areas of programming that you might want to see. We want to help. I think this is a time for everybody to come together and help one another, because I think if everybody has a smile on their face and a positive outlook, this whole thing is going to end up better for everyone. So I appreciate you all being here very much. Thank you. And I appreciate you guys, sharing your wisdom and your expertise. Marcus, I know you're still seeing patients. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Dan, of course, thank you for, thinking of us and wanting to share your your wisdom and your experiences with the people you work with, and Brett, thank you very much, of course.
For sure. Thank
you.
And by the way, I just wanted to point out too, before we began, you guys told me not to wave my hands too much when I talk, when I did the intro. Yeah, after I finished the intro, my dad sent me a text message that flashed across my screen, telling me the exact same thing. So sorry for not. It was like involuntary. It's involuntary. So we keep it real around here. I couldn't help but notice
it throughout the whole thing. I was like, "There's those hands again."
Sorry, guys.
It was like Ricky Bobby.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what to do with
All right, guys. Hey, it's been a real honor, real privilege.
All right.
Thank you.
Work on these skills, guys. I wrote them down. I hope you wrote them down. We're going to go to work on these skills. Okay?
Yeah, we'll get them out. Thank you all.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Stay tough, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.